So when you do a movie like Strange Days, which was a big movie at the time, it was a big deal, and I think it's actually laid some groundwork in terms of future films for, mining that idea, or those ideas that you guys created in that picture. Does the size of it and doing the big studio movie and all that stuff faze you, intrigue you, interest you? I mean, is that something that compels you in any way, or?
Probably. Simple answer, no. I think that it's all about content and idea, and I think the more, not just because Hurt Locker was made for a modest sum, but I do think the more contained the budget is, the more creative control you have. And I mean, there are exceptions, of course,
right.
But I think that kind of, I think, creative control, especially on a piece that's personal and it's a labor of love, is critical. Mm-hmm. Those pieces can't afford to be made by consensus. Mm-hmm. They really do need, kind of singular approach and a fairly passionate trajectory to make it through the system and remain intact.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Doors. Prepare for Prattle.
He says we're going the wrong way.
Oh, he's drunk. How would he know where we're going?
Yeah, how would he know? Thank you. Thanks a lot. Terrific.
Thank you.
What a moron. You're going in the wrong direction!
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Wrong Direction, where we look at a popular director's less successful work and try to determine what led them down this road. And we're back in the beginning of the new millennium, Y2K. We've talked about that in End of Days. We've talked about a film that involves James Cameron. We've talked about a film that has a character named Jericho. But we're back and we're going into a cyberpunky thriller vibe as we're looking at Kathryn Bigelow's End of Days and asking what went wrong. Did she go in the wrong direction or did she go in the right direction? And I'm back with my guest who is the ultimate cyberpunk. Georgina Ruth Hanmer is back to tell us a little bit about this film and her love for the work of Kathryn Bigelow and much, much more. Welcome back, Georgina.
Hiya. You all right?
I'm good. You? It's good to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So this episode, I was supposed to have another guest because this year has all been about the patrons voting because when we Johnny Mnemonic was chosen because the patrons decided that's the one that we want to listen to, which we had a great conversation there. I really, really enjoyed that. And this only lost by about 2 votes, so it was a close one. It was a very close. But there was another podcast ad plan, which again wasn't voted for, but we've just struggled to get the guests kind of organised and on brand and just kind of work it all out. But it's fine because Georgina has come to the rescue, and I thought why not just cover the other option that the patrons wanted us to cover, which is again Kathryn Bigelow's Strange Days, a very interesting film. How did you kind of get introduced to this film?
It was, to be fair, it was just another one of them ones that, because of the genre of this film, I was just instantly interested. I mean, obviously, it was released in 1995. I would have been 9 or something at the time. Not something I would have watched, but I did see it in my late teens, actually, on recommendations from friends, that kind of thing. They're like, oh, yeah, it's probably something that you'd quite enjoy. So I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a watch. Absolutely loved it. on my first watch, and every single time I've watched Strange Days since then, I just grow to love it even more. It's one of those kind of films to me.
It's definitely, it was quite, I felt it was very relevant, a lot like Johnny Mnemonic. It was kind of very prescient, very predicting of future and again the past as well. I found that kind of like it's kind of become more relevant, much like Johnny Mnemonic again. Kind of the William Gibson. You talked about the squid technology as well in the last podcast.
You'll find squid in this, and it's quite pivotal to the story of Strange Days overall. Obviously an acronym, and I had to write it down again because I can never remember. Superconducting quantum interference device.
Well remembered.
It's something I should remember because I'm in electronics myself, and these words are not new to me.
Before we get talking into the film, because I know we will talk long and hard into this film. I'm sure there's a lot to cover, and I think there's so many ideas within the film. Maybe the film doesn't adequately explore them all, but we'll get into it and see how far we can explore these ideas. But because this version of the show is about the directors, why don't we talk about Kathryn Bigelow herself? I'm a big fan of Kathryn Bigelow and her work. I got introduced to her through Near Dark, which is the kind of vampire film, which kind of the Western, but it kind of plays around again. It's kind of a mixing of genres. How do you feel about her? She's clearly very successful and has done. It's kind of a trailblazer for female directors. Now, I say female directors. She does not like that term. She does not like to be kind of put in that box, let's say. But yeah, how did you discover her, and what are your feelings on her work and what she explores, her themes, her directorial style, you name it?
Not watched a huge amount of her films, but I will say the ones that I have watched, I have wholly enjoyed. She does have a particularly interesting way of directing her films. Like, a lot of it is quite visual. I have noticed that. But yeah, it was Strange Days and, funnily enough, Point Break that made me, like sort of switch onto her as a director. And obviously her relationship with James Cameron, that's not something that can be skirted over.
No, he does like powerful, driven women, especially in the entertainment business. If you look at all of his marriages, pretty
all
much.
5 of them,
all 5 of them, doing very well. But yes, he was heavily involved in this as well. But no, I have to agree. She has there's a kinetic energy to her films and her editing and her style. Like, speaking of Point Break, I've seen it before, but I've never done it in like one sitting, which I did the other night. And I was like, I'm going to sit down. I'm just going to really embrace
sit
this.
And watch it through.
Yeah, just like properly, like give it its time, give it its due. And I loved it, of course. It's great. A classic of the kind of action movie genre. But again, it's, she's playing with ideas, and there's a lot of homoeroticism there as well, that you don't, it's not really actively acknowledged, I think, in a lot of action movies, but it is there, I think. And because she has a different view than most kind of action film directors, a different take that comes through. I love that on the foot chase scene with him, with Keanu and Swayze, which is kind of almost POV as well. And they're running and chasing, and they're going through and there's a woman beating Keanu up, and going through all the windows and closing the door on his hand and stuff, and wonderful like little elements. And they throws a dog at him. It's just a wonderful scene, and I was just like, this is excellent. Forget about the car chases, just this on the foot going through the kind of the suburban setting, through these homes and the narrow kind of unescapable kind of labyrinth that they're going through. I thought was just shot so beautifully, and you feel like you're there, like you're absolutely immersed in this moment. And then you get that wonderful moment that's parodied in Hot Fuzz, where he's like shooting the gun in the air, like,
rolls on his back.
I can't shoot him. He's my friend. I can't do it. And I thought it was quite clever as well, because Patrick Swayze is known to have problems with his knee, and it was quite interesting that Keanu in the film has issues with his knee. I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I think that's a real good example of kind of what she can do, what she can bring out of you, like that kind of exhilaration and that rush, like the characters in the film.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot there that she kind of identifies with as well, because she's very much into like high impact, gripping films. And I think she can create some of the best of that genre and that type, that style.
I think that is something to be said about Bigelow, is the fact that she does have a tendency to like latch onto these particular emotions that you will find in her films, and I don't know what it is. It's almost like she kind of amplifies them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And the one thing that I do like, I mean, yeah, she doesn't like the term female director. She is a director, yeah. But when you have films that are created from obviously sort of like different viewpoints, whether they be gender, nationality, whatever, it's refreshing. It's Hollywood at one point was literally all just white men doing all the films, acting in all the films, you name it. When you get different viewpoints from different people, you get different perspectives on it. And it is so refreshing, especially to see action films being done in this particular way by a woman. Everything is so raw, so visceral. And I don't know what it is. I take pleasure in watching films like this. And I'm like, there's lots of stuff in her films that she touches on from the films that I've seen anyway, that are just, they stick in your mind. And
Absolutely.
it's because of the rawness of it. I think that's the correct way to say it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's the rawness of the emotion and a lot of the violence as well.
The actual visuals of the violence as well.
Because again, like, she talks about violence in a lot of ways and how she uses it and how it fascinates her. It fascinates her quite a bit, and in some cases might be a form of kind of, it's what kind of gets her going and gets her blood pumping. Call it whatever you will. It's something that interests her, and her own relationship to it, I think, is interesting. And we'll talk about that in Strange Days as well. But originally, she did a short film. She comes from an artist background, much like was it Robert Longo directed Johnny Mnemonic, sculptor?
Yeah. Artist turned director.
There you go. So it's the same here with Bigelow. So she was an expressionist. I think it was Walter Koenig, the kind of abstract expressionist. That's the style that she comes from and utilize. So it kind of forgets naturalism and tries to unearth kind of deep-seated emotion through the abstract, which I think you can apply to any of her films, because they're genre films. They're like B movies. But they're like B movies with a knowing intelligence to them as well, with a nod and a wink. It's not just like, because B movies tend to kind of be kind of throwaway fast food kind of films, which are, and I enjoy that, and I have fun with those. And like something like Blue Steel with Jamie Lee Curtis, highly recommend that if you haven't seen that. It's a cop thriller. She's a new rookie female police officer, and she is kind of targeted by this creepy kind of Wall Street guy who and the way she films guns in it is very like sexualized, hypersexualized, and that power and there's a lot of dynamics they're playing with. It's a proper thriller, but the way it's kind of, you could argue, some people I think have argued in the past that she glamorizes violence, but I don't think that's the case necessarily. I can see why some people would think that, and I think I think in Strange Days she kind of acknowledges that and says, I think some people have missed the point in like things like Point Break or Blue Steel, where it's like, oh, it's a great action film. Oh, that was amazing. Oh, yeah, I'd love to have a gun and shoot people. It's not that. All of her film, not Near Dark or any The Loveless or whatever of her films, it interests her and she wants to explore it and like deep down wants to understand it.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's glamorizing or saying violence is great. Going back to her background, her first short film that she made was called The Setup, and she got two of the actors to do like a prolonged fight scene, but she had them really fight. She had them really beat each other up. So I don't know if maybe you could go so far as to say maybe the violence is somewhat, a fetish to her, or kind of, I'm not sure. Maybe fetish is too strong a word, but it's something she's uniquely interested in herself and exploring and depicting that in a certain way.
I think depicting violence as it is quite important. I'm a firm believer in I don't think that things should be censored. Like, I mean, there's censorship to a point, and then there's unnecessary censorship of things. Like, if you censor things too much, then people are just going to become, completely oblivious to it and unaware to it. And it's not through, I don't know, it's not through this thing where they've they've seen too much violence and they're just completely oblivious to it. They're completely oblivious to it because they don't think it exists. And I don't think that's right. I really don't. It's one of those, I don't think censorship should be really a big thing, to be honest. I don't like it when people censor words, especially.
Yeah.
One of my big pet peeves. But no, the violence should be portrayed to a point, I think, because nobody's going to avoid that for the whole life.
No, it's going to happen. You're going to experience violence at some point, unfortunately. However that may be and however that transpires. Like, things exist, things happen, and we need to be aware of them. Or, and I'm sure some people would describe, if Strange Days came out today, people would go, oh, it's a woman director and it's about issues, social issues, oh, it's woke. Yeah, of course it is. Of course it fucking is. But again, that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it arresting. That's what drives the narrative and the story, and that's what drives Bigelow to tell these stories. And as the further she's come along in her career, you can see that she wants to tackle real life issues. She doesn't want to do the romantic vampire film. She wants to do Zero Dark 30. She wants to do The Hurt Locker. She wants to do Detroit. Are all, again, very real life, untold, undocumented stories that need to be told, which again interests her. And again, the way she films them is through the kind of use of steady cams and head cams that she helped develop for this film itself. So she was a trailblazer in that kind of technology. And again, that has been kind of, arguably, she could be one of the big kind of front runners of maybe the found footage genre, arguably. You could say, yeah. You could say, because that opening sequence in this film, again, we're not talking about it just yet, but that is found footage. I don't care what you say. That is a found footage film that truly immerses you in that moment, in that scene. And that's the idea. And again, those moments in the Hurt Locker where he's like disarming the bombs and the guy's got the mobile phone. I know you've not seen it, but it's really intense, like really visceral, and grabs it. And again, She's the first. Again, I know I don't like to use the term female director because I know she doesn't like the term female director, but she is the first woman to win an Oscar for directing, a BAFTA, a Saturn Award, and the Directors Guild of America Award as well, like the first ever. And this is like 90s, late 2000s, which is kind of still shocking to me that female directors have not had that opportunity. I think she's recognized it in her lifetime that still she's the one people bring up when they talk about female directors. They don't talk about, it's very rare you get like a Greta Gerwig or somebody else being talked about in the more kind of modern era because of that. But yeah, I will say Zero Dark 30 wasn't for me. It's not my bag. I don't think it's anything to do with her or her filmmaking. I just think it's a bit of a dull story. It's just a lot of people stood around going, we've got to get Bin Laden. Right. Yes, I agree. We've got to get Bin Laden. How do we get Bin Laden? I don't know. It's just, that's the whole film for me. And,
hang on, it wasn't Bin Laden, was it? It was Saddam Hussein that they found in a cave surrounded by empty Snickers wrappers, wasn't it?
That's right. That's right. That's what the story is. And then at the end, you get that again. She uses the head cam kind of night vision footage again.
Well, that's Zero Dark 30 is the one with Jessica Chastain, isn't it?
That is correct. Yeah, absolutely. And she was criticised for the waterboarding scene in the film as well, because they use like actual torture to get the information from the extremists, the terrorists. And people were complaining of her depiction of that. And again, I had no problem with it. It happened. It's real. Yeah. You know, it absolutely happened. And again, the characters are uncomfortable with it. It's not glamorized or shown to be a good thing that is occurring.
Yeah, but it's not like something you'd go down into some weirdo's dungeon and pay them for.
Like a snuff film or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and it did happen. It's true. Like, this is a true story, and it did happen.
I mean, the CIA, they get like torture training anyway. Like any sort of like government agency like that, or SAS, Navy SEALs, that kind of thing. They all get this kind of training, how to resist it for as long as possible, if not indefinitely. So it happens.
It does. It absolutely does. But yeah, I think that's one of her strengths as well, is exploring some of these kind of social issues. Again, in Blue Steel, we see a woman in the police force, and she has an abusive dad who was a cop, and it's her kind of response to that, and which drives her into the police force. And we see, Near Dark kind of explores some interesting kind of flips the gender roles, like Caleb, who is this young kind of cowboy, cocksure cowboy, is actually not living up to the masculine standards set by the patriarchy, and the love interest, I can't remember her character's name at the moment, but May, that's it. May, she is a killer, and she's teaching him how to kill. So it's not like she's like this weak kind of ingenue or anything. Mm-hmm. Like she takes on that kind of masculine killer role and kind of teaches him how to be, more like a vampire. And again, there's a lot of things she's playing there. Strange Days explores like police brutality, racism, corruption, voyeurism, addiction. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, and again, we'll get into it. And again, Point Break is kind of, is critical of the FBI and the way that's run. Zero Dark 30 and the Hurt Locker is critical of the armed forces and the Iraq War. She's out there with her opinions. Like, she's not afraid to shake things up, which I really like about her as well.
She's not afraid of showing things as they are, basically.
Yeah.
Like, here's life. Got a bit of shit on it. Deal with it. This is how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, she's something else, and I appreciate that. I'd rather films take risks. I'd rather people take chances and operate like that. Tell stories from a different viewpoint, like you were saying, with all these different characters and all their different opinions and the way she kind of frames everything. It's always interesting to me, and I kind of feel a bit jealous for you because you've not seen quite as many of her films. Because I'm kind of holding back because she's not got that much left in the filmography that I've not seen. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of like, I want to save some for later, kind of thing.
Are these like the kind of films that you wish you could forget so you could watch them again type?
Some of them, like Near Dark, I'd love to experience again. And again, I talked about that on a podcast with Rhea Carrigan on Them on Film, which I adore, and kind of that was a real big kind of important film for me, like as a person and growing and as a teenager. Like, I went out to buy that DVD when I saw the ad because I found the trailer on TV, like, showcasing the DVD quite arresting. So it was quite, she's been there for me, in my kind of, in my brain, and her work has been there quite important for me. So yeah, I've always kind of appreciated her work and want to again like touch on this stuff later. But yeah, there is stuff I wish I'd could see again, or could see again for the first time. But yeah, but I will still happily revisit almost all of her films I have seen. You know, even the ones I'm not that keen on. I probably won't revisit Zero Dark 30, I'll be honest, but I think the rest I think I definitely kind of touch on again 100%. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say about Kathryn Bigelow at all, and her work, her style? Or
I should probably actually make some time to watch a few more of her films. I don't know what it is. I do have a penchant for like really cheesy action films. You know this. I love my cheesy action films. But occasionally, a serious one does kind of slip in there, and I will enjoy it. I love my comedy films, my cheesy action films, rom-coms and all that. I tend not to go for more the ones that are more based in, like, I don't know, real life, if you want to call it that, you know, like true stories, that kind of thing. I do like a historical film to an extent, but I definitely do need to watch more of what Bigelow's
I'd say because she does go down the real life route quite a lot, I'd probably say look at Blue Steel and Near Dark, give them a try, because again, it's still very stylized, the way she depicts these films, until she goes into a more like realistic route after Strange Days, and kind of handheld and all that sort of stuff, and steady cams, whatever you want to call them. So she goes through that. I don't know, do you want a few quotes from her, since I've got a few quotes here? Would you like to hear them?
Go on then.
Yeah, I've done some research.
Hey.
I've done some research, Georgina. I've been reading. So she says here, what drew me to film predominantly is its ability to be this incredible social tool that you could reach masses of people on so many different levels. I think when films are most successful is when they are provocative, when they challenge your thinking, when they make you think about something and perhaps even make you angry.
Ooh.
So again, challenging topics and challenging...
Provocative as well.
Provocative,
that's
right.
Very nice word.
She is a provocateur, I have to say.
A provocateur.
A provocateur. Yes. What else does she say? Let's find another one. I've got some others here. This is about her not liking the term female director.
Yeah.
If there's specific resistance to women making movies, I just choose to ignore that as an obstacle for two reasons. I can't change my gender, and I refuse to stop making movies. It's irrelevant who or what directed a movie. The important thing is that you either respond to it or you don't. There should be more women directing. I think there's just not the awareness that it's really possible. It is.
I like that one. That is good.
Yeah. Do you want to hear what she thinks about B movies as well?
Oh, go on, definitely.
Go on. B movies are sort of a world in and unto itself, and I found them totally inspiring. I think they are just extraordinary. They delve into a darkness. They talk about the demons that exist in us all. They take a lot of chances, and took a lot of chances at the time. They are sort of very moody, mercurial meditations on theme, and I was fascinated by them, riveted to them. I watched as many as I could possibly get my hands on. When I was being introduced to them, as I was moving away from art and into the world of film, I stumbled upon noir films and couldn't get enough of them.
See, you can't beat a good B movie. That's the thing, though. B movies are always enjoyable. That's the thing. I mean, you get a lot of people going on about their favourite, their favourite B movies, and people do seem to have, like this adoration, this sort of slightly unhinged love for specific B movies, and I can completely agree with her on that. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move on to this film. So, Strange Days. Strange days have found us. I'm gonna talk about my experience of this film. So, going back to my teenage years, this was shown the day it's set in the film. So it was shown on the 29th of December. Was it December? Yeah, December 1999 on the BBC, and that was the version I saw. Again, I was a teenager, so I was scrolling for boobies. Basically, it's late at night. I'm scrolling for boobies.
Did you not have the Littlewoods catalogue?
Not quite. I couldn't wrestle that away. I had my own TV, so I had to find my own ways of entertaining myself. I'm like Lenny Nero. I was looking for my ultimate rush, and I did get it, but not quite in the way that I'd hoped. I think, which we'll get into. But I talked about this last time when we talked about End of Days as well with Andy. That not only this was like, obviously a day or so before New Year's Eve. And was it the 30th it's set on? I can't remember, but I think it's set over a couple of days, isn't it? I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was watching that, and then not that, but 2 days later, I was watching another Cameron-related film for the first time, which was Titanic on New Year's Eve. On the eve of the millennium, I was watching his film, The Titanic, or Titanic, and I remember thinking it was shit. It's like, this is shit. It's not for me. I remember all my friends went to see it, and I was like, and I knew about the boobies in it, and I was like, you're just seeing it for the boobies. That's all you're seeing it for. You don't give a shit about the Titanic or the history. And they're like, no, it's dead interesting. It's the history. I'm like, shut up. It's a 12A and it's got boobies in. You're going to go see it for the boobies. I know what you're doing. I know. I'm with you. I see your game.
I remember Titanic, and I will quote Philomena Conk here, the Titan 1C. I remember that specifically in high school because obviously it had Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and all the girls at school were like, oh my god, Leonardo DiCaprio is like really fucking hot, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's a boat film.
It's a boat film.
It's a boat film.
Plus, you know the ending as well.
Yeah. Why would you go? How long?
I can't predict the ending. I really can't. My favourite bit in Titanic is when
it's sunk.
Yeah. So not only that, when it's sinking and it splits in half, and there's one guy who's hanging on, and he like, falls, and he's like, and then it clunk, it hits his head. Yeah, exactly. And then he goes quiet because he's dead. He's literally just dead.
It's like the best bit in the whole film.
100% the best bit in that film. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Titanic. We are here to talk about Strange Days. So why don't you give us it's quite a complex plot. There's a lot going on, but why don't you give us a rundown of Strange Days plot? I
will try and do a bit of a TLDR on it, but even then, I was explaining this film to a mate of mine at work earlier on, and I started just waffling.
That's all right. This is Prattle World.
Yeah, that's a tism. We're used to prattling on. That's a tism.
I've not been diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure it's there as well. So don't worry.
Pretty sure, yeah. But TLDR, Los Angeles, 1999, absolute shithole. Civil unrest, riots, you name it, it's happening. Absolutely awful. Anyway, enter Ralph Fiennes, who plays Lenny Nero. He's an ex-LAPD Roser, who is now keeping himself going by selling these black market tapes, if you want to call them that. Well, they're on a mini disc in the film, of people's
I think
memories
that's so
and
people
experiences.
Understand. I think that's so the local yokels go, oh, it's a tape.
Yeah, a tape. When you're as old as we are, you do remember
VHS,
these things like
Betamax, all of that.
Oh, Betamax, yeah, mini disc. Oh, good old days. Yeah, Lenny Nero, Ralph Fiennes, he's peddling these discs of people's memories and experiences, and of course they're recorded via use of a squid. Like we mentioned before, people have these little unit things that they stick on their head, and it connects to their brain, and it records all the feelings, the visuals, the sights, the smells, the sounds, everything, you name it. Records it onto these discs, and people can relive them and experience things such as, I don't know, dying, for example, or robbing a liquor store, or, I don't know, knobbing a really attractive person. The range is limitless. Anyway, he's making a living selling these, and it was technology that was originally used for the police force. Ended up on the black market. But yeah, it's one of these stories which is, I want to say the word holistic. Everything there's these little moments that happen all the way throughout the film, and slightly bigger moments, and then eventually all the characters and these individual parts come together, and then everything completely makes sense. I feel like I'm missing something there. I'm probably not, but
there's a lot. There's a lot, to be honest.
There is quite a lot to actually, take in, and it's hard to condense in this film. But Lenny's going about peddling his wares. You come across this, range of characters that are in there, like some of his mates, ex-girlfriends. Who else have we got in there? We have
got Mace, who is played by Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
Absolute MVP of this film, is the best character.
Oh, she's an absolute badass.
Oh, just the coolest character. On next level kind of stuff. But yeah, I loved her character. I remembered her being a cop, but it makes sense. I think I'm misremembering. I think in Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy, I think she's a cop.
Yeah.
And I'm mixing those two films together. Again, this is the first time I've watched it since 1999. So surprisingly, I remembered quite a lot, but there were certain things that kind of were a bit blurry. So, but she's actually a limo driver. She's a valet. She's a chauffeur, whatever the term is.
/ bodyguard as well.
Yeah.
She's quite badass.
Oh, well, she's got a trunk full of guns, hasn't she? So she's ready.
Yeah.
And she's like...
an armoured limo. So.
Yeah. I love that he goes... she's like, don't worry about it, it's bullet resistant. He was like, what happened to bulletproof? That's my favourite lines in it. And we've got Tom Sizemore's
Juliette
character.
Lewis.
Oh, Juliette Lewis, yeah. Who is Faith, an ex-girlfriend of Lenny Nero, who's played by Ralph Fiennes, and she sings in it because she's a singer, which is great, and she gives some really cool, very punk performances. And she plays
PJ Harvey songs, by the way.
Yes, I read that. As well, which is interesting. But yeah, and we have Tom Sizemore. Was his name Mac? I can't remember. Is it Mac?
Max.
Max. Tom Sizemore's character. Yeah, the mate who's also a former copper. He's retired, and now he's a bodyguard.
Like turned PI now. So.
And you've got Michael Wincott, star of The Crow, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Three Musketeers, and various other
nasty,
things.
gravelly ass voice.
Yeah, he's got that. I think this is
villain voice.
Yeah, he's got and he's kind of using an English accent in this, which I feel like is very rare for him. But yeah, no, I thought he was great in this. That part was originally going to be played by Bono, apparently, which I'm glad that didn't happen. And he's like a sleazy record producer, isn't he?
Much like Bono. Sleaze.
Here, have an album nobody asked for. There you go. But you didn't pay for. You just got it. Fuck off, Bono. Fuck off. Stop giving me stuff I don't want. Who else we got? We got Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes. Private Pile.
Yeah.
Jelly donut.
The Kingpin. Yes. And William Fichtner. Is it William Fichtner?
Yeah. Who seems to be in everything, but he's like Ethan Hawke. He's in everything, but you can never remember his name, and you can never remember what he's in.
Yes, yeah.
But he's in it.
Yeah. He's in The Dark Knight. It was in the beginning of The Dark Knight, and I think it was in Prison Break, and he's in tons of shit. You can't. I think he was in Drive Angry as well, and some other stuff. Don't know if I'm remembering.
Oh, he's probably in My Back Garden last week.
Probably, but pay him enough money, he'd probably be there. They have very, very small roles. And what's the?
I wouldn't say that they have small roles.
Yeah,
they're quite integral.
I mean,
but
they're integral, but like in terms of maybe screen time,
you're bordering into like ensemble.
Yeah, it is an ensemble.
I think in this film,
definitely. And I'm just who plays Jericho 1? I'm forgetting his name.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm gonna Google him. Jericho 1 Strange Days. Glenn Plummer. So he's the guy who he's a guy from Showgirls who says, everyone's got AIDS and shit. That's him. Yeah, that's Showgirls. For you're not going to see the visual, but Georgina just did the Showgirls hand movement dance. Just brilliant. That's a film I should
went
cover.
To drama college.
I can't dance for shit. I'll be honest, but I enjoy that film on a level. There's a level of that film.
Little Woods catalogue.
Yeah, very much so. That was one of the ones. That was one of the ones I did find. That's one of the ones I did find one late night. I was like, oh yes, there we go. I was just looking for the words. This is how sad I was. I went on teletext and was looking for the words erotic thriller. I was like, that'll do. That'll do it. That'll be the one. Dirty Mind. That's how I learned the 24-hour clock as well. Because I was like, what's 23? What's 23? 23 o'clock. What's that? Oh, it's 11. Great. Now I know. Just such a little teenage pervert I was. Anyway, back to this film. So yeah, Lenny is peddling the squid technology, and again, this technology, it's not like you're just watching something; you are feeling it, you're experiencing it,
you're feeling it on literally everything. You close your eyes, and you were taken directly into this memory as if you were experiencing it yourself, like you are that person that's living that memory at that time.
You feel the emotions, you feel the adrenaline, you feel whatever you feel.
In fact, do you remember in our Johnny Mnemonic podcast that we did, I was saying that in certain cyberpunk medias, whether it be like video games or telly shows, films, whatever, a lot of the technology seems to cross into each other.
Yes.
So when I was pitching this film to John, actually, who has never seen it before, I'm like, how the hell have you not seen Strange Days before? And he was like, I don't know. I might have seen it. I've pushed it out the head and I've put some Linux in there.
His memory palace.
Yeah, he's got his mind palace, but it's all acronyms and VoIP. So
useful shit as opposed to
for his job, but not for when you want, to win a pub quiz when you need pop culture in there. But as I was pitching it to John, I was like, just basically think of Cyberpunk 2077, Braindance the movie.
Yeah, okay.
There will be people that will get that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that sort of like crosses over into, different cyberpunk stuff. And
hybridization, which Kathryn Bigelow loves,
Yeah, this is definitely one of those moments.
So it started off as we'll get into the plot a bit more a little later, but I wanted to talk about kind of how it got made. Yeah. So initially, it was written by James Cameron, which we've talked about already.
That fucking guy.
Controversial James Cameron. And he was kind of inspired. He was filming Terminator 2, in fact, and it was all about kind of. He was filming it I think it was like 2 blocks away from where the Rodney King incident happened.
Yes.
Which had an indelible effect on that film. Like, there's a reason the Terminator, the T-1000, is a copper in that film.
Yeah.
He's saying something there. That's not an accident. That was happening right on his doorstep when he was filming this stuff. So that kind of played a role in it. The story of Lorena Bobbitt. Do you remember Lorena Bobbitt?
Vaguely, yeah. Trying to remember off the top of my head.
So she was famous.
There was a lot. She cut off the guy's knob.
That's right.
Yeah, was it her husband's penis? Yeah. And it got stitched back on.
It did. So she, in the middle of the night, cut his knob off, took it with her, drove down the highway or the road and threw it out the window. And then he had it sewn back on. And he went into porn, and he did. I think it was a film called like Frankencock or Frankenpenis or something. And I think again, being the pervert that I am, I think I may have seen part of it. And I think there's a line where the woman in question goes, "Oh yeah, fuck me with that fake dick." I'm a pervert, everyone. This is me coming out of my shell. Just saying, I'm a pervert. But there we go. So he went into porn. So yeah, there was kind of something being said about that. And then again, the LA riots were heavily influenced in the script. And then while they were filming it, the OJ trial was happening as well.
Yes.
While they were filming Strange Days. So this whole melting pot of LA life and culture it was exploding. at the time and kind of found its way into the script. Cameron wanted to, like, he pitched it. They're still good friends, even though they're, ex-husband and wife. He said, because he'd helped her on Point Break with the script. So she was like, what have you got next? Have you got any ideas? And he's like, what about this? And she loved it. And she was like, right, she wanted to kind of add a lot more grit and grime and kind of the dirt of it that interested her. And Cameron really wanted to kind of explore the love story within this film. And that's kind of slowly how it came together. There was like a treatment, there was kind of a half treatment and a script. And then they passed it off to a guy called, speaking of Cox, Jay Cox. And he made it into like a proper narrative, a proper script, and kind of put the dialogue together. And then Cameron again punched up the dialogue. And that's how it began and started kind of the ball rolling on that film. So yeah, a lot to kind of, a lot of kind of topical stuff went into this script. Yeah. And you see that in a lot of it. There's a lot of kind of through lines and storylines and plot elements that you explore. I don't know if maybe they're explored fully or given enough time to breathe. I'm not sure. I think that will depend on your personal experience with the film and how you felt. I don't know how you felt, whether all of these topics, again, like we mentioned, the real life topics were explored in the film.
I mean, definitely what happened with Rodney King. Just briefly, if nobody knows about the Rodney King verdict, and this is funnily enough how this film is. Oh God, you could watch it today and it's like yeah, like oh God, it's
more relevant if anything. Yeah,
more relevant now than anything else you can think of. But briefly, Rodney King was set upon by a bunch of LAPD officers. He was arrested during, I think it was a high-speed pursuit or something like that. And yeah, basically they battered him, and these police officers just got off with it.
Yeah, they did.
Like nothing happened to them. They just got away scot-free, using excessive force and all that kind of thing.
There's a great documentary, I think it's on Disney Plus actually, and I think it's called LA 92, and it discusses the whole thing, like talks about, all the different kind of events that kind of spun off from it, and it's absolutely fascinating. Highly recommend it. We've talked about it a bit before. We did a comparison of unlawful entry and Lakeview Terrace we did a few years ago now, which again, very influenced by that stuff at the time. But it's fascinating because within the story, just a kind of the main kind of cusp or driving element of the story, I'd say, is the murder of Jericho 1, who is this rapper who is a political activist, very Malcolm X. There's a lot of kind of Malcolm X kind of elements to him, and he is pulled over by the police. And these two police officers, Vincent D'Onofrio and William Fichtner, realize who he is, and he's talking back to them, and they execute him quite violently and suddenly. And what they don't know is that the person in question, who's a friend of Lenny's, who is involved with Faith and Philo, the record producer who is the manager of Jericho 1, is wearing a squid cap because Philo wants to kind of have surveillance on everyone because he's paranoid. Which again, this whole film's about paranoia. So she witnesses it, and that's really quite, like, those elements are really like there's quite a lot of shocking kind of POV elements within this film. I think that's one of the most shocking for it to depict, because it does look like, if you go and watch the Rodney King footage, he's not killed, but he gives up and he's brutally beaten and it's caught on camera. And he even came out at the end and said, kind of, because the riots were kicking off massively, and they were like, you need to say something because it's not going to stop until maybe you could possibly say something. And he comes out and he says, famously, can't we all get along? Which kind of went down well or not well, depending on your perspective. But yeah, absolutely kind of fascinating bit of kind of real life in this, again, sci-fi film that, again, wasn't far off. The millennium was not far off. This technology, really, we're dabbling in AI, we're dabbling in virtual reality. It's not, it could still happen. This future is potentially still on the cusp of occurring, which is a scary thing.
Yeah, exactly. The social aspects of this film, though, I mean, obviously they rang true back in that day, and like we have been saying, it's ringing true. It would definitely ring true in these days. Yeah. I mean, there's various other aspects of this film as well that also ring true. Violence towards women, for example. Yeah. That's another one. That is something that is portrayed quite a lot in this film too.
Yeah. There's within the film, just to clarify, there is a serial killer who is involved in this woman who sees the killing of Jericho 1 is murdered because of what she knows, and they're looking for the tape, they're looking for the recording.
This is where the holisticness of this film starts
crossing
to
over.
Come together.
Yeah, exactly. And then what's happening is the serial killer is leaving these tapes for Lenny to experience. And this is what I remembered as a kid, which is the most fucked up idea in the film, which is there is a serial killer who is a murderer /rapist, and we experience it through the recording, through the headcam, through the eyes of this murderer. Like, we are complicit in this rape murder, which is, again, I was very young. I was, just in my teens, I think, when I saw it, or maybe younger. I must have been 11. I think I must have been 11. Yeah, so quite young to see something like this, and I still remember it to this day, and the way they describe it, the idea that he's recording it and then he puts the squid on her head and turns it on and transfers the feed to her. So not only is he murdering and raping her, the squid is telling her to enjoy it.
She's experiencing it whilst he's also experiencing what she's feeling as well. Right. So it's like some weird feedback thing.
Okay.
And I'll give you another reference as well to another cyberpunk property that also does the same thing. It was an episode of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. If I remember correctly, it was called Jungle Cruise, and this was a particularly nasty episode as well. One of the characters in it, Bato, he goes chasing after this. Again, serial killer who is using the technology in the Ghost in the Shell universe, cyber brains and things like that. So it's a similar sort of concept. He's going around attacking these women and using his own cyber brain. He is plugging into his victim's cyber brain. They're doing the same feedback thing, but what he's doing is he is cutting their skin off in the shape of a T-shirt.
Oh, God.
And whether or not these women are like just a cyber brain and a human body, or if they are whatever percentage of cyborg or whatever, because obviously if they're human, they can fucking feel it, and if they're a cyborg, then they do have sense receptors as well. They can still feel it, and their brain is still processing it as pain. It's the exact same thing. So that is another parallel to another cyberpunk property.
That was one of the things I remembered because it was so
it's fucking brutal.
It's really the idea is totally really fucking messed up. Like, even just the concept of it.
Yeah, the other thing that we go on about this point of view thing. It is first person point of view. So if you were playing like Call of Duty, for example, or another film that I can allude this to is Hardcore Henry.
Yes.
So these squid memory moments are completely first person point of view. Just think Hardcore Henry or Call of Duty or whatever. You get the picture.
Yeah. And it kind of, what it does is it kind of, again, like I've talked about it before, there's all these kind of rape revenge movies, which were quite popular for a time, made by men, and quite supposed to be quite titillating. And some producers would conflate rape with sex, because they're like, okay, it's a form of sex, or they have to get naked, and then they have to get the women have to get their revenge, blah blah blah, and they are problematic. The idea is problematic, but I think in this, what Bigelow is trying to do is trying to say, questioning your enjoyment of the violence and of the and questioning the the toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, the view of women as disposable objects. She's saying a lot in this scene, and this was probably the scene that was criticised the most. And it's again another scene she's had to defend, like Zero Dark 30. It's something she's had to kind of talk about. Actually, I've got quite a big quote from her about the film. Would you like me to read it?
Of course.
It's a long one, so hold on to your horses. If you hold a mirror up to society and you don't like what you see, you can't fault the mirror. It's a mirror. I think that on the eve of the millennium, a point in time only 4 years from now, the clock is ticking. The same social issues and racial tensions still exist. The environment still needs re-examination, so you don't forget when the lights come up. Strange Days is provocative. Without revealing too much, I would say that it feels like we are driving toward a highly chaotic, explosive, volatile, Armageddon-like ending. Obviously, the riot footage came out of the LA riots. I mean, I was there. I experienced that. I was part of the cleanup crew afterwards. So I was very aware of the environment. I mean, it really affected me. It was etched indelibly on my psyche. So obviously, some of the imagery came from that. I don't like violence. I'm very interested, however, in truth. And violence is a fact of our lives, part of the social context in which we live, but other elements of the movie are love and hope and redemption. Our main character throws up after seeing this hideous experience. The toughest decision was not wanting to shy away from anything, trying to keep the truth of the moment, of the social environment. It's not that I condone violence, I don't. It's an indictment. I would say the film is a cautionary, a wake-up call, and that I think is always valuable. She hit the nail on the head, hasn't she?
She fucking did.
Clever lady, yeah, I mean, and I think that's her kind of defending those choices that she made. Again, did I feel uncomfortable watching those scenes? Of course I fucking did. Did I feel uncomfortable, with the police brutality at the end and the police brutality in the Jericho 1 scene, in the squid scene, in that? Of course I did. But that's the fucking point. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. It is provocative. That's the point. She wants to garner a reaction from you. That is what film should be for her. From her perspective, this is what it needs to induce: a feeling, a reaction. If I was numb to it and I thought these scenes were fine, that's when I have to worry. That's when I have to have a problem with it. That's when I have to question things. But because I had a visceral, intense reaction back when I was a young teen, or back when I was, a preteen, I was seeing this, and again, probably a bit too young to be seeing it, but I still appreciated it and knew what it was trying to say, and understood, intellectually, I understood what I didn't go, oh, this is fine, this is totally cool, this, but that's what she's doing. This is what she wants. She wants to bring out again that expressionism, that abstract expressionism is within this film, and that's what's trying to unearth those deep-seated emotions, and it did, and it does. It works. Yeah,
like it literally is the whole point. You're not supposed to sit and watch a film like that and be, oh, isn't that nice? No. It don't work like that. No. You want the nice, weird little, I don't know, the action film / romance, then you go and watch True Lies. No, this film does that. It has its little romantic elements, but that's not the point.
Sure.
Not the point at all. No, there's deeply disturbing stuff in this film, and you were meant to watch it and you were not meant to feel comfortable about it.
Exactly. And I can understand why people might, I'll probably put a content warning before this just because of the topics and the kind of things could be quite upsetting to people. I respect people if they don't want to watch it or if it's a bit too much for them. I can completely understand. I do, I would say people should watch it. Because I think there's definitely something here for people to, again, it is provocative. It is meant to make you feel things, and sometimes, and again, like she said earlier in that earlier quote, sometimes you need to need to let it make you feel angry.
Yeah,
you should feel, and you should feel angry at these things. You should feel angry at police brutality and corruption and all this other stuff that's going on. And again, she's a fan of subversive politics. She doesn't like the status quo. She is not a fan of the status quo or how it is and the way the world is. And that's shown throughout every single one of her films. She highlights these untold stories, these unreported stories. Would Rodney King have been reported if it hadn't been filmed? Probably not.
Probably not.
Not. But it was, and that's what made the headlines. And again, they tried to cover it up. They tried to kind of push it away. And again, there's that moment at the end with Mace, who tries to give the tape to the commissioner, and she's like, it's not going to change anything. How do I know he's not corrupt? How do I know he's not part of the problem? And he appears to be, and he could be. But that's her, and she says, you expect me to trust a cop. But then Lenny was a former cop, he was one of the good ones. But again, his life kind of, unraveled due to for various reasons. It is powerful stuff. There's a lot of powerful, again, feelings, emotions, content, themes, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot being said in a fairly short amount of time.
Exactly. Yeah. I can completely agree with that.
But yeah, like it's crazy how she can kind of even contain it. Again, like I think maybe there's some. I do think it runs maybe a little long. I think maybe just a touch long. I think there is maybe there's a dip for me, kind of maybe a third of the way through, or two.
There is a little bit. There's like a little bit of meandering.
A lull, I'd say. Yeah. And it's not bad. It's not bad stuff. I just feel like I think there was a way that you could have maybe just truncated the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think we needed to see Faith that many times. I don't think we needed to visit Faith that many times because it's basically the same conversation each time.
It is pretty much.
It's like, I love you. Come with me. I'm worried about you. Okay, no. And then again, she reveals a little bit of information here and, and a part of the mystery and stuff, but it's not really, it could all be done in one scene, basically, or maybe two. But I think 3 or 4 times is crazy amount of times for him to keep going back. And I know it's supposed to show, because I think it's kind of prescient because it's exploring our addiction to technology as well.
Yeah.
Like,
obsessiveness as well.
Exactly. We're constantly on our phones looking for that dopamine fix. We're on Candy Crush or Facebook, or, we're making posts and TikTok and Instagrams and Fortnite, whatever you want to call it, it's happening. It's now. Your, pornography addiction, you could argue that's, again, the squid is showing pornography to a degree.
Well, that's a thing when you think about it. Technology has advanced, it's just made it just more easy and more accessible for people to essentially give into their vices. Exactly. Whether it's, I don't even think you can have a good vice, can you? I don't know. It's either a good vice or a bad vice. I think there's a level between it. Like,
sure. Handle your high, I guess you could say. If you can't handle your high, you need to give it up. If you can manage it, then that's not. If it's not going to affect your life, then people do. People do cocaine. There are casual drug use has kind of been normalized to a degree, I think.
4 more lines of coke.
Yeah, exactly. That's people do it on the. I know mums and dads that do it on the weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I won't name them, but I know it's a thing that's done. Yeah, do they do it throughout the rest of the week? No, but they do it. There's people that will drink, but they'll only smoke when they're drinking. Various other bits. It's a thing. But yeah, so I think it depends on how you manage it yourself. But yeah, a vice is a vice. I think mine's fast food. I think that's my vice. Too many takeaways for Dan, I think.
I don't even know what mine's is anymore because I gave up smoking at the end of January.
I'm sure you've replaced it with something like watching
Health. Health.
Health. Oh no, I'm alive. I'm living now. What is this pain? It's life. I'm in the life vice.
I've just replaced it with like Amazon.
Solar opposites
and Amazon, yeah. But yeah, no.
I buy out of print comics as well when I shouldn't do, when I can't afford it. That's what I do. But yeah, like again, there's not much to say about the kind of development of it really, but there was a few things I wanted to kind of talk about before we get into kind of our proper feelings on the film. So the point of view action sequences, so especially the opening, which I think is amazing. They developed new cameras because they didn't get the effect. So again, like I said, she was a trailblazer in developing this technology. You know, you might not get Peep Show without Stranger Days. You know, you might not get, you know, all these kind of you might not get, you know, Blair Witch Project. You might not get all these other kind of found footage films without developing this kind of technology. It's you know, this kind of, you know, immersive. Again, she's always all about immersing the audience in. I mean,
you probably wouldn't have even actually had the technology that came from, you know, this kind of. It would have been an actual setup, wouldn't it? At the time, you wouldn't have had. I don't think you wouldn't have had like GoPros or anything like that.
No, I guess not. I mean? I guess like, not. Yeah.
Wearable technology is becoming a massive thing now. I mean, I'm sat here, you know, with a Fitbit, and funnily enough, on my other arm, a 1980s digital Casio watch, because I refuse to use this for time.
You are the ultimate cyberpunk. You are right.
Oh God! But yeah, it's kind of like how when you think about it, when the Wachowskis did the Matrix and they did that whole camera rig thing for the bullet time.
Yeah.
Bigelow would have definitely had some sort of influence on wearable cameras and things like that. There's got to be.
Well, what's there's a phrase, something is the mother of invention. Was it necessity?
The mother, yeah.
Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Mother of all invention, yeah.
Something like that. So we'll call Kathryn Bigelow the mother of invention. What they do as well is there's secret cuts in that footage as well, like that you don't realise, but there are cuts in that footage because I think they did it by kind of spinning the camera, like, you know, when it kind of blurs. I think that's where your cut is. But
that jerky movement, as if you've just like
spun your head around.
Did your head? Yeah.
You've done like the Michael Keaton bat turn really quickly.
Yeah, you're L'Oreal worth it.
Yes, exactly that. And I think that's where they hide the cuts. But again, it is immersive. You feel it. You know, you're living it, and that's the point. And that's what we go to films for. That's why we go to the cinema, is to live these. And again, like she's saying something about voyeurism as well, and I think she's saying something about herself as well, because she talks about, like, especially in Point Break, they're all about the rush and the adrenaline and finding the high, like living for that high. And I think there's a lot of Kathryn Bigelow in Lenny, like she's looking for that adrenaline rush. But then with Lenny, it gets too much. It gets to a point where he's experiencing these sex crimes and these murders for real, but he has to, in order to, again, find out what it is and learn the information he has to learn in order to solve the murders. And that is it. But I think that's her questioning her own kind of obsession with violence as well, like, and questioning her own, like, connection to it and whether it's healthy or whether it's good for her, which I think is quite brave, actually, to kind of put all directors put themselves on screen to a degree. It's a part of them. It's their art. It's their creation. It is them to a degree. But to be that critical of not only yourself personally, but also within, a fictional film, and to kind of show that much of yourself, so much so that I can see it, that it's clear to me that there's something there that she's kind of wrestling with herself and the kind of beauty of violence. And again, that's what cinema is voyeurism. It's to experience the things we can't experience or are not brave enough to, like you were saying, those vices, for example, we it's not really, a lot of them aren't really safe, some people have AI girlfriends because, they're worried about, I don't know, STIs and unprotected sex, for example. Let's say that. There might be, reasons for them feeling more comfortable, or they feel maybe that their particular kink might be, shamed, or, or they might feel uncomfortable revealing that to a partner, to maybe someone you're married to even. And it's safer doing it this way and, and chasing that dragon in a more kind of comfortable setting to a degree. You don't want to go out and rob a liquor store, even though you might want to, or you don't want to, do all these kind of the dangerous.
You're not going to let the intrusive thoughts win.
No, exactly. Yeah, please don't. But I mean, we all have them. Like I've been in interviews where I've been like, what if I just punch this guy who's interviewing me? And I'd be like, well, one, I'm not getting the job.
You think?
Maybe not. What if I called him a cunt? I wonder what would happen. And I play out the scenario in my head. I think it's healthy to do that. I used to have a friend who didn't do that, and I was like, I think you're a serial killer.
That's not right.
Weird. That's weird. It's all right to do it. It's not. But he thought I was weird for doing that, and I was like, no, you're weird because you're not doing that.
I think mine's is opening the car door on a motorway at 70 mile an hour.
Yeah. I wonder what happens if I jump off this ledge or this balcony.
Oh God, no! I get that all the time.
Yeah.
I hate it. I'm like, whoa.
I get a bit of vertigo as well, so I'm almost like leaning over, and I'm like, these two things should not go together. This is a problem. But yeah, I think there's some real heart to this film. I know there's a lot of brutality and some really fucked up stuff going on being discussed. But I think again there is some kind of positive things and exploration and love and attachment and commitment and memories and grief and trauma and loss.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
I think Kathryn Bigelow does have. You can tell she definitely does have a thing with people and stories, like individual stories. Yes. Even if the character is only like moderately minor in this film or whatever, they are there for a purpose and they are there for a reason, and it advances the story. And everything connects with everything else. This is one thing that I did really like about this film. Like there's not really much in terms of like filler.
No,
I didn't think there was.
Yeah,
not
agree.
too much anyway.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I don't think this filler. Again, I do feel like there's some things could be just trimmed a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think all those characters do serve a purpose. And maybe he didn't need to meet up with Max quite as often as well, maybe, and some other stuff. I mean, give me more Angela Bassett any day of the week. I was like, I need more scenes with Angela Bassett and her character and what she's been through and her kind of trauma and all that sort of stuff. Such an amazing kind of character. You know what? I actually think Stranger Days could be a really good like miniseries or a TV series just to explore that world a bit more. I think you could expand on that. I don't think we'll see it happen, but
probably not.
But I'd be up for that. I think it's an IP that people are aware of, but not like too aware of, that where they'd be like, I can't believe they're remaking it, all this. But yeah, I think there's stuff to explore. I think in this kind of Blade Runner-esque kind of vibe that they're going for. Again, like there's a Blade Runner reference where Juliette Lewis throws the towel at him and says, "Dry me." That's what one of the replicants says to Decker in
Zora.
Yeah, in Blade Runner. So, which I thought was a cool little nod there. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. There. Yes. What else did I want to say? The cinematographer Matthew F. Leonetti estimates that 50 to 60% of the film was shot with a Steadicam or some sort of moving camera. That's crazy. That's a lot, considering it's like a major studio, big budget sci-fi film. That they were like, she was allowed to be that experimental.
Exactly. They're bordering into like David Lynch territory here.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Some of the footage, I'm like, yeah, this is a bit Lynchian.
A bit Lynchy.
Do you want to know about who almost was cast as Lenny Nero?
Oh, go on.
Here we go. It's quite a list. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Again, and End of Days, so it's not far off. Denzel Washington, Michael Keaton, Tom Cruise, Jeff Bridges, Mel Gibson, Bruce Willis, Andy Garcia, Nick Cage, Patrick Swayze, John Travolta, Sean Penn, Bill Paxton, Dennis Quaid, and Kurt Russell.
So not that many then.
Just a few. I think the closest two were Garcia and Travolta. I think they almost had it. But Bigelow said the role required somebody who had tremendous amount of intelligence, complexity, depth, and a series of qualities that I really felt only Rafe could supply. Cameron, however, initially felt that a glibber, slicker actor would be better for the role, but admitted that Fiennes made Lenny a sexier character, a guy you can very much care for.
I won't even say sexier, I would say snivelly and weaselly, because that is exactly what he is.
Yeah. But I think you need that. I think you need that because he is kind of like vermin or a parasite on society, you know.
He is essentially, yeah. He's dealing in stuff that he shouldn't be dealing in, and to be honest, he's like a preem salesman when it comes to this shit that he's peddling as well. So he's getting people on board, and he's getting the Benjis for it. But like, I will give you a little bit of an interesting fact about Ralph Fiennes, though. So if you go through his filmography, he'd only actually been doing films seriously for literally just a few years before he was cast for Strange Days. If you have like followed his career over the years or whatever, you will know that he was a prolific Shakespearean actor, and was for the longest time, like at least a decade or something, before he actually, started getting into like films and stuff seriously. So I think that's where his strengths lie in this film, especially because he can. He's got that nice timbre when he's going through his lines in the film, and he's got this lovely flow as well. And you can only get that from someone who has done something as complicated as Shakespeare.
True. And I've done Shakespeare, and I know
I have as well.
It's not an easy ask. But yeah, there is something to him, and again, I think it's hard to make a character like that likable, because he is a scumbag,
but still an absolute skeezer.
Yeah, he's an absolute scumbag, but it's still relatable to a degree. We've all had relationships that have gone wrong, and we've pined for people that, in relationships and things that never really worked out, and, have got this trauma. And I love that speech that Mace gives where she's like, right here, right now, this is what we're living for. We're, not playback.
Referenced in a Fatboy Slim song as well.
Yes, right here.
Directly sampled from this film.
Exactly, yeah. And she didn't know until last year, I saw in an interview. She had no idea. So now she's probably looking for some money somehow, somewhere. Royalties. Give Angela Bassett all the awards, give her all the royalties. She deserves it all. I 100% agree. Just off the back of this film alone, but I love her anyway. I absolutely adore her in What's Love's Got to Do with It, the Tina Turner biopic.
I love that
fucking
film.
Great film. Lawrence Fishburne is a fucking scumbag, and that's a proper scumbag. If you're looking for a scumbag performance, Lawrence Fishburne is amazing in that as well, and she's great as well. But yeah, amazing film that. So if you've not seen that, go and check out that biopic. It's quite inspiring, really, actually. Yeah. One more thing I wanted to say before we move on was that so for the New Year's Eve scene, it was shot on location. So this was actually all shot in LA mostly as well. Like, it's set in LA and it's shot in LA, which again says something about all the stuff that was going on at the time. Apparently they didn't have many issues apart from when they were shooting in the subway station. But 50 off-duty police officers were hired to control an assembled crowd of 10,000 people who had to pay $10 in advance to attend the event. So they basically they put on a party. They put on an event to end all events. They also hired promoters and to produce performances from Aphex Twin and D-Light.
Oh.
It sounds like you wish you were there.
Yeah, I do. Aphex Twin, Richard D. James. I love the man.
Well, he was there He was peddling his wares, peddling his music.
Peddling his wares, going, "Hey, I'll listen to this shit."
Here's a banger.
That's what he does.
Yeah, here's another banger. Strange days. But I will say several people were hospitalised for overdosing on ecstasy as well.
Of course.
Because they believed it was the millennium. They built into that atmosphere, and they were like, count it down. Count it down.
I was like, yeah, I can't believe I get to do this for real in another 4 years.
Hopefully I won't overdose that time. Yay. Yeah, it's probably a little bit of a letdown afterwards, I imagine.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, I think we talked about our feelings on the film a little bit, but what is it about this film? Because you wanted to do this for the Patreon pick, so what is it about this film that really, if you've not mentioned it already, what grabs you, what keeps you coming back to it?
Like I said right from the get-go, every time I watch this film, I just love it that little bit more. And I think it is because it's relatable. There's not too many films that I can watch and just think, yeah, I can relate to this kind of film. Not personally, usually, funnily enough, but it is because of what's going on in the world. It's relatable to me because I'm sat here and I'm watching the news and I'm seeing all these issues and things that are going on locally or in America, across the world, whatever. And this film, I think, just literally encapsulates a little bit of that, and I do like a film that just it makes you think. It's not too tasking, but it does leave that little seed in your head, and it's something that you can come back to when you do experience something similar or you watch something similar in real life. Basically, I like this nice crossing over effect between films and real life and vice versa that you can get. And it does. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, this happened and that happened, and I can reference it like I did earlier on with other things that I've watched. That's how I find it relatable, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. And I think, like you said, like the where she went was very much like, this is real. These undocumented, untold stories that need to be told, that people need to be aware of.
Exactly.
As a provocateur, as to to understand, like she said, holding up a mirror. Don't curse the mirror. It is what we are living with. I think for you, it seems to be like the kind of barrier for you is that it is still fiction. I think, like you were saying, you seem to stay away from the true stories and stuff. There is still like a dividing line where it doesn't get just too real, maybe, for yourself. I don't know if you feel that way or...
I mean, you've still got it in the back of your head, I do anyway, that it's a film. It's still a film, but it's also like, when you watch it, you... Like we mentioned before, you sit and you watch this film and you are captive for however long the film lasts. You're like, right, it's a film, but it triggers things.
Sure.
That's what it is. I don't know what it is. I do have this thing where sometimes I just want to switch off from the rest of the world, and then I will go and watch a film. And if I do watch something like Strange Days, it just reminds me that it's still out there.
Yeah, but again, it's
going on.
Yeah,
but I'm here.
There's kind of I think there's a dividing line where it doesn't go into like too traumatic or too triggering a thing. Because if you're watching, like I remember watching like Selma, which is about Martin Luther King, and that was quite it opens with an explosion and two young black girls being basically vaporized, which is a fucking incredibly powerful way to open a film, and does make you think. And I think there's a buffer, isn't there, kind of, with it still being fiction but still addressing real life things. Yeah. You can still kind of disconnect to a degree. You can still, in the back of your mind, like you said, those things happen, those are real, it's talking about real things, but this film is what I'm here for. I'm here for the fictional element, but I do appreciate taking those real life elements and discussing them in a sense. But again, it's not watching Detroit or The Hurt Locker necessarily. I mean, if I want to watch something that's completely out there and detached from real life or whatever, I will watch anime. Yes, yeah.
Or I will watch some kind of cartoon or whatever, and I'll just sit there and I'll laugh my ass off for however long or whatever. It's personally knowing what mood you're in.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to have a good mental health day. I think this film, for some, I think you might need to be on a good mental health day to do it. I think because it is that kind of immersive and kind of grabs you by the throat. I think for some people it might be a bit too much, but that's fine. You know, horses for courses, and you know, it's however you want to manage it. If this isn't for you, you don't have to watch it. No one's forcing you to watch it, but I think there is positives from watching this, even though it does have some troubling and disturbing subject matter. Again, I think it's important to know and to remember these things go on, because again, like we said about my friend, you know, he's just like, oh, these things might not happen to me, or don't happen to me. The violence, you know, I've never been a victim of violence or prejudice or something like that, but they are, we should be aware of them, we should know them, and we should know that they go on, and we should make sure that they don't happen to people. You know, whatever your background, you know, religious, racial, you know, societal prejudice still occurs, you know, sexual prejudice, you name it. You know, if you're completely cut off and ignoring it, or think you're living in your little dream world, your little bubble, that's again potentially kind of dangerous, which is Lenny is living in his own little bubble. He thinks everything's fine. He can't pay. I love the Rolex joke in this, where he's like, he keeps giving his Rolex away when it's not a real Rolex.
Oh, it's his jacket for me.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like, oh, watch the jacket. It's Armani.
It's brilliant. And again, he's trying to talk his way out of everything. But yeah, like that's him. He is trying to kind of escape and not deal with the real world ramifications of what he's selling, you know, and what he says he doesn't sell snuff, so he won't sell squid videos or tapes that have someone dying in it, because that's, you know, it's a snuff film basically, and he's still, you know, a cop at heart, kind of, to a degree. He's
got a moral compass, but it's a bit janky.
Yeah, but that's why Mace is there, because she is the strong moral compass. She knows that.
Yeah, she is the literal bang on the head and going, oi, stop it.
Yeah. And again, like that's Kathryn Bigelow flipping those gender roles as well. Like, she's the strong, tough, good with like guns and stuff. Doesn't mess about. She's the action star of this film. And Lenny, without help from his friends, would get absolutely fucking nowhere.
He'd get slaughtered.
He wouldn't even get his car back. I guarantee it. Wouldn't even get his car back. And I love that. And again, you know, she's the one that's educated and is hopeful and trying to do things. And Lenny is this kind of weaker, kind of not very sure of himself, not physically able, you know, constantly he's getting beaten up, and
in fact, you've just reminded me of one of my favourite little scenes in that film, and that's when Mace is driving that businessman, and she's driving Lenny around. They're in the back of the limo, and he's trying to peddle his wares in her limo, and she's like, "Don't you fucking dare! What have I told you?" And then he still carries on, and she's like, "I'm fucking throwing you out, man." And she boots him out of her limo and gives him a bollocking. And his face when she says, "You're walking, bitch."
Yeah. He's like, in LA?
What?
He jumps on the car hood.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I won't do it. Gets back at, yeah. It just portrays just how snivelly he is, and just how much of a badass.
He's desperate. And he's desperate for faith. He's desperate for making money. He's desperate for trying to relive the past.
And not getting hit in the face.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it always happens. And that's something, again, another kind of theme that runs through it, is that kind of desperation. They're all living desperate lives, and you know, Tom Sizemore's character talks about how you could be here one minute and gone the next, and that you're not paranoid enough about the world. You know, they talk about all these kind of conspiracy theories and death squads, and you know, all this sort of stuff, which are kind of, again, you could, if you wanted to, you could go down a kind of conspiracy theory thing, but I like, in the end, it's kind of a Sherlock Holmes thing when the two cases are connected and they intertwine, like you were talking about the holistic hybridization kind of thing going on. And I like that it's not a conspiracy. It's not this grand conspiracy. Spoilers for the end of the film, but it turns out that these are two renegade cops who just killed Jericho 1 randomly. It affects everything. It could become a bigger issue, sure.
Yeah.
But it's not, the killing of him does not have some political meaning. There's not some shadowy group, you know, in charge of it.
It could have.
But it could have. Yeah, exactly. Which I like that it's implied because, again, we have, I used to enjoy like conspiracy theories for fun, like kind of thing. But now the people that are believing in conspiracies are those kind of fringe types, those kind of dangerous, kind of incel kind of people that are potentially dangerous. And they do listen to Donald Trump, and they do, listen to these kind of Tommy Robinson types, who has just gone into jail. Thank fuck for that. Yeah, he's, and I'm sure somebody will go, well, he handed himself in. Well, fuck off. He's a terrorist. He's a fucking terrorist. He knew it. And he felt in danger.
Fanny of mammoth proportions.
Yeah, he felt in danger. That's why he went into prison. That's the only reason. That's the only reason he put himself in there. Wanker. Anyway, speaking of real life stuff, but again, like we were talking how prescient and how, again, this is, speaking of that, it's still happening to this day. The problems, the issues within this film are still, you only have to look at George Floyd, which,
exactly,
and the Black Lives Matter movement during COVID and how that fucking exploded, and rightfully so. That is Jericho 1. That's probably arguably it's more relevant. The Jericho 1 killing is more relevant to the George Floyd scenario than it is to Rodney King, because Rodney King didn't die, George Floyd did. And that's kind of terrifying.
And I think it was down to like social pressure as well that all of the police officers involved with the murder of George Floyd eventually did all get their asses slapped, didn't they?
Good, yeah.
Because to be honest, if it had gone the same way as how it did with Rodney King, they wouldn't have done. They would have gone off completely fucking scot-free.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy. At least they learned that from that lesson. They learned the lesson of Rodney King, that it wasn't, because it was already blowing up to kind of Rodney King proportions, before sentencing. Like
exactly.
People were mad, and rightly so, deservedly so.
Social unrest is nothing to be scoffed at.
No. And Lenny questions this as a white man. He questions handing in this tape and the problems it will cause. The civil unrest, and it's going to blow it's like a powder keg. Everything's going to blow. But Mace is like, no, this is the truth. This happened. This is real. And she didn't want to use the squid, but he says to her, I kind of think it's a dick move, to be honest, that he forces her to do it. But I feel like probably still she kind of did need to experience it just to get a kind of taste.
He did say that it was too important for her not to see it, and he's like, and what else did he say? I am sorry that your first experience is this. Yeah.
And I think that's important. Actually, going back on that, I think it is a bit of a dickish move, but also to describe something like that from a a white straight cis man to a black woman, it wouldn't have the same effect, I think. And I feel like there's maybe it would have been more uncomfortable if she hadn't kind of experienced it for herself, through the squid. Yeah, actually, it makes more narrative sense. It kind of had to be that way because it is something that's very real. And again, Mace is trying to escape these two policemen, kind of find them, and they're trying to set their car alight, burn them, kill them, shoot them, and they give them a false tape. They give them a different tape that's not right. It's one of faith, and then Mace is later found by them, and then she's been beaten in public. And again, a very powerful scene. The crowd, join in, stop her from being killed, and they she manages to and she looks great in that dress as well. She looks amazing in that dress.
That dress is amazing on her.
Yeah, Vavoom. She looks incredible. She's in such great shape as well. Like, she is absolutely ripped, incredible. And we almost got her as Storm in James Cameron's and Kathryn Bigelow's X-Men at one point, along with Bob Hoskins as Wolverine.
No.
Bob Hoskins as Wolverine. He's the right size. He's the right, It's
5'2".
5'2". It's perfect. You saw Deadpool and Wolverine, right? You saw the comic accurate Wolverine.
Killing me. No, I look at Bob Hoskins and I think Bob Hoskins in Wolverine. I'm like, nah, he was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Mermaids with Cher and Winona. I'm like, okay. And then I just instantly think Oh, God, because he does kind of look similar, and he's also short in stature. But Danny DeVito, and then I think Danny DeVito as Wolverine, and I'm just like, it's his character in It's Always Sunny.
Yes, Frank, yeah.
Could you imagine Frank as Wolverine? I'm dying here. Deceased.
Oh, I've got another quote from Kathryn Bigelow as well before we move on to some other stuff. Bigelow considered Strange Days her most personal film, claiming that it's a synthesis of all the different tracks I've been exploring, either deliberately or unconsciously, ever since I started making art. So
That's a good one.
yeah.
That is.
So yeah, I do my research. I don't mess around. I do my research. I read articles. I read an article today. I read articles today about James Cameron's ex-wives.
All 5 of them.
All 5 of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's really good at that. He's really good at marrying.
He's really good at pissing off his missuses. Mad shagger that he is.
Mad shagger. That's what I'll call him. James Cameron. That's what should be on his gravestone as epitaph. James Cameron.
James Mad Shagger Cameron.
Also directed some films.
He did the Titan 1C.
The Titan 1C. Oh dear. Yeah. What else do we want to say? Yeah.
I don't want to give too much about the actual
the
ending
mystery
storyline of the film or anything.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a bit of a twist.
Yeah, there's enough.
Bit of a twisty.
There's a lot going on. I don't think we've revealed too much, but yeah, there's enough. The thrust of it. But there's a lot of other stuff going on as well.
You get a bit of a gist, but it genuinely is a film that I think should be watched. I mean, it is. It's one of my favourite films. I can't tell you what order it's in, but it's there.
Is it in the top 5, top 10?
I can't do that high fidelity shit, man. I can't do it.
We do it on this podcast all the time. We do top 5s of fucking everything. High fidelity fashion.
I can't do it. No, I've got a bucket, me, and I've got all my favourite shit in this bucket.
And you just pick it out. You just pick out every now and again.
Oh yeah, this one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll do this one. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I will not question you on your top 5s. Clearly, I can't have you on a top 5 podcast now because you can't do them.
I could if pushed. They're already in my bucket. They're just not in any discernible order.
Yeah, my top 5s. They tend to be not in order, and I also tend, because this podcast's about like the obscure or underrated stuff, I tend not to go for the obvious ones. So we did one you might quite like. We did a top 5 worst corporate executives. Fictional corporate executives, which there's a lot. That was a fun one. I check that one out if you get a chance. I think you dig that. There's a lot of Paul Verhoeven, a lot of political stuff being explored, yuppies and all that. I think you'd enjoy. So yeah, let's talk about the release, the reaction, and reviews of the film. So it grossed $17 million against a $42 million budget, meaning flop.
It did not do well at all.
No. Is that? I can't remember if that was worse than Johnny Mnemonic or better. I can't remember.
Off the top of my head, I think it was maybe slightly better.
Yeah, probably. Again, if you've got Cameron's name on it and Bigelow's name, maybe that probably helped a little bit.
Probably would have got a few houses on seats.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, maybe it's kind of, again, like we said with Johnny Mnemonic, were they ready for the cyberpunk aesthetics? That's something. But I will say Edward Guthman of the San Francisco Chronicle criticized the film for failing to commentate its violence, saying that Bigelow's style is so visceral that her movie reminds us of a snuff film, rather than a well-reasoned cautionary tale about our animal instincts. And David Denby of the New York Magazine called the rape scene the sickest sequence in modern movies. I don't agree with that. I've seen worse.
I've seen worse as well.
I watched Cannibal Holocaust for this podcast, sorry. And that has actual animal killings in it. and it has a rape scene,
I've
which
heard
is
about that one.
yeah. I would not recommend it, and a lot of people did went and watched it, even though I did because I covered it. They were like, "I need to watch this," and I was like, "Do you?
Like, no, you don't.
Do you really?" No. But again, I appreciate them watching it and listening to the podcast, however you want to examine it or figure it out. But it is what it is. So, what do you think of those comments? Apart from that, do you think she misses the cautionary tale? Is it a snuff film? I don't think it's a snuff film.
It isn't a snuff film. That's a bit harsh. I mean, yes, it's a violent film, but it's not violent for the sake of it being violent.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot different than just watching a film where, like, people are getting battered left, right, and centre, shot to pieces, stabbed to bits, blown up, eviscerated. I like that word.
Bob Hoskins could have done some good eviscerations if only he was given the chance as Wolverine.
True. To the groin, maybe.
Yes. I mean, he's right there. He might as well.
Just there. Yeah.
What you do is you get a Colossus and just have Colossus throwing Bob Hoskins at people. That's all you need. That's what you need.
like a trebuchet, like a
fastball special,
a catapult or something. Yeah. But it's not violent for the sake of it being violent. So I don't agree. I don't agree with that comment at all. I really don't.
No, I don't. I think she does present. I think that's the point. She, again, like we talked about, she's presenting it because she's making you feel culpable in the crime.
Yeah.
She's going, because, there are films where, like, let's say Maniac with Elijah Wood, which is a remake of an earlier film, but it is shot in POV. I think there was one recently which was in Violent Nature, I want to say, or something like that. Violent Nature, something. And again, it's a POV slasher movie. And again, there's a lot of people talking about that. Are you living vicariously through these characters and stuff? Mm-hmm. But I think this is actually quite, like, I'm still very uncomfortable by the scene. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's relatively tame to other stuff I've seen.
When you think about it, yes.
Yes. If you look, what is shown on, like, we talk about things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you watch that film, it's not the blood or the gore because there is none. You very rarely see it. It's all implied. And I think a lot of this violence is implied. And I think what it is it's what you're getting from it is Ralph Fiennes' reaction is mirroring your own feelings, because he doesn't enjoy watching these clips. He doesn't enjoy this experience. And
he is almost like the everyman.
Yes. Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah, he's
he is
your entry character, let's say, or what
he is, yeah.
And
he's the audience's guy.
Yeah, exactly. And you're supposed to relate to his experience. You're not going this is great, because they keep cutting away from the violence to show you Ralph Fiennes' reaction. And I think a lesser film and a lesser director's hands would remain and make it, too visceral and too, full on. And that would be a problem, potentially. That would potentially glorify it. But because we cut back to Ralph Fiennes doing some really good acting, to be honest, because you can see what's great, so many levels on this. You can see he's enjoying it and kind of almost orgasmic, but also you can see he mentally, he knows this is wrong and disgusting and horrible, but the feelings of the killer are being transition or kind of communicated through his brain to tell him this is a nice feeling, this is a good feeling, you're supposed to feel like this. And that's when some of the best acting he does in the film is during those scenes. But yeah, I think people weren't quite ready for this film. I think they weren't quite ready to have those conversations, to talk about the police brutality, talk about the crimes and violence against women, like you were talking about. Whether or not the cyberpunk elements they were ready for as well is another question. But I think these difficult conversations with the LA riots and again this kind of misogynist crimes, in this patriarchal society, it was something they didn't want to acknowledge or talk about or experience. So I think that might be a reason it didn't do so well. I'm not sure how you feel about it.
No, I think you're right on that. I mean, I do know that there were some issues with, like, marketing as well, so that would have had a massive deal in it.
Which won't be included in that budget either, so they'll have spent a good few million on marketing as well, I imagine.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, the marketing wouldn't have helped, but I think it suffered from the same thing that happened with other films of, you know, this particular sort of genre. And it's not just like, you know, your cyberpunk elements or anything. I mean, when you do look at something like Johnny Mnemonic, which was released in the same year, that had less of a budget, and it made back just a few million more, if I remember correctly, than what Strange Days did. It's one of those films where people probably go into it thinking that it's, you know, just like pure action film, bit of a story, and then when they do get presented with something that they do have to think a little bit about, then
it's not just a brainless action movie. You don't turn your brain off at the door at stuff like this.
Exactly, you don't. You've got to sit through it, and you've got to actively listen and watch what is going on screen. And I don't think a lot of people went into that film, you know, thinking that. They were like, yeah, I'm going to watch like some guns and tits and that kind of...
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's
not Terminator, you know what I mean? Like, Terminator has a few little, you know, kind of ideas and stuff, but, you know, it's an enjoyable action thriller with horror elements, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this is a film that actively asks you to be questioning things.
It asks you to participate in it by sitting there, opening your eyes and opening your bleeding ears.
Exactly. So I have to talk about this reviewer, because we always do, because he always has some opinions. So Roger Ebert, he gave the film 4 out of 4 stars.
He loved it.
He bloody loved it. And like he hates everything mostly.
He doesn't love anything.
No, he doesn't. Generally doesn't love anything. He said he described it as a technical tour de force, highlighted the astute use of squid technology, stating that Bigelow is able to exploit the idea of what is happening. She forces her audience to deal with the screen reality instead of allowing us to process it as routine quote-unquote action. The technical aspects are also praised in Variety by editor Todd McCarthy, who remarked, no other film since Lady in the Lake in 1947 has experimented so extensively with the subject camera. I think that's another POV film, I believe. And then Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly gave it a B-, concluding that Strange Days has a dazzling atmosphere, a grudge of futurism, but beneath its dark satire of audiovisual decadence lurks a naggingly conventional underworld thriller. So bit mixed bag review, that one.
Yeah, I can't say that I agree with that last statement. I don't think it is your typical just run-of-the-mill, you know, detective noir, crime noir story, you know, that kind of thing. It's no. It's a bit more special than that, I think.
Yeah, like Mace is not your, you know, your female protagonist. You know,
no, she's not like an average love interest either.
No, exactly. There's so much more to her character going on. Lenny's not your average noir protagonist. He's not having an affair. He's not a private investigator. You know, he's a fucking drug dealer.
He's not your typical lead male either, is he?
He can't handle himself. He can't, you know, he's not the... He doesn't solve anything really to a degree, you know. It's still, everything still happens, but he manages to get the tape to Mace, who kind of saves the day to a degree. You know, not without revealing too much about the plot, but yeah, that's how it was received by critics. Rotten Tomatoes has a 69. I don't take much stock in review websites, but for this, I'm just gonna go through them. So 69% on the tomato meter by critics. That's 69, dude. And that's based on 56 reviews. And then the popcorn meter is for audience of 25,000 plus ratings. That's 73%. So the audience seemed to like it a bit more than the critics. And there,
do indeed.
On Metacritic, it's critic reviews give it a 66, and then user reviews give it a kind of a 7.5, so quite similar. And then Letterboxd gives it an average of 3.8 stars out of 5. And then CinemaScore gives it a B. What do you think to those ratings?
Now, obviously, because I do love this film, I would personally give it a slightly bigger score. But obviously, knowing how people are, as sometimes people are not all that great.
As this film shows.
I'm trying to be nice here. I'm trying to be... I can be super mean at times, and I'm just trying to be just a little bit more nicer.
You don't have to, let it all out. Let it all out if you want.
Oh, fucking assholes. This is what I would expect from your regular cinema goer, like the people back in the day would be like, oh yeah, let's go and watch this film. It's got this British guy in it. That's all I need to say. And they'll come out and be like, it was all right. Probably because they've not done that thing where, they've gone in expecting a full-on action film and come out like, well, what was the crack there then?
Yeah, because there's not really many quote-unquote action scenes, is there, really?
There isn't really when you think about it, no. It's you have got to use your brain a little bit. I think the main problem that happened with this film was the fact that it was in the fucking 90s.
I mean, you seem to like 1995 quite a bit, so I don't know.
1995 is pretty much when all the films that I like came out, so I don't think a lot of people in 1995...
Nothing since 1995, no?
Nah. I don't know. Basketball, I can quote that fucking film from start to finish.
That's an absolute classic. Love it.
Evolution.
I've not seen that one, I don't think. But yeah, I hear good things.
Please watch it.
I will. Maybe that's one for us next time. We need to get out of 1995, Georgina. We're going to run out of films if we just keep doing them from 1995.
1995. What was the other one? Hackers.
Oh, that might be interesting.
I love that film.
Okay, that's an idea. I like that. I'll put that in the memory banks.
In the bucket.
I'll put that in my squid brain.
Put it in your bucket.
Put it on my tape. I'll put it on my tape. I'm wearing one right now, so I'm going to record that. Make sure I've got a copy of it. But yes, I think there's it seems to be very mixed, the reaction. Like audiences seem to dig it a bit more, but which is interesting. Like, I don't know if maybe there's some misogyny in the reviewers as well, because they're probably mostly men who are probably reviewing it. So I don't know if there's maybe something there, like, oh, this upstart woman directing movies, telling me what to think about women and how I should treat them. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. But yeah, I think generally the audience and maybe the world at large was not ready to, maybe this was a bit too close to home, maybe. Do you remember
probably not.
Do you remember
it, yeah.
Do you remember when COVID was still kind of going on, we were all on lockdown? I think there was a film that came out called Hummingbird, and it was about COVID. It was about lockdown. I think it was called Hummingbird, something like that. It was produced by Michael Bay. I'm going to look that up. I think it's called Hummingbird.
Can't say I remember
something
that
like that.
It
wasn't. Maybe I think Hummingbird's the Jason Statham Michael Bay COVID film. I'm just going to type. I'm sure it'll come up. What was it called? Michael Bay COVID movie. Songbird. There we go. Songbird. So yeah, that came out in 2020. So the height of kind of COVID. And I was going through my Facebook memories today, actually. And I remember going, this is either going to drive people to the cinema or drive them away, because it's still raw. It's still ongoing. It's still, people are still, it's still happening. It's still, the people have died, relatives have passed away.
Yeah, people are still suffering from the effects of it.
Exactly.
So
I feel like it might be this kind of situation that, because of the LA riots was so recent, and the OJ trial and all this other stuff was ongoing, maybe the public in general and maybe the reviewers in general just weren't ready or weren't open to deal with these
weren't
issues.
Receptive to it. Yeah. Maybe just a little bit of salt in the wound.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah. And again, don't get me wrong, I think all these things should be talked about. I think they should be taken down. I don't think we should ignore them or not talk about them. I think they do need to be discussed. But maybe it was just a little too soon, perhaps, for some people. Do you remember those World Trade Center movies? They came out fucking quick as well. Do you remember them?
They did. They came out, I was just thinking that.
They came out fucking fast, 4 or 5 years.
Ongoing as well, aren't
they're still
they?
coming out now, yeah, of course. But but like this, and again, like that was, the grief was still real there, and it's kind of almost, and there was I think it was Patriots Day with the bombing in like Boston, I think it was. There was a movie made about that with Mark Wahlberg, and I felt that was too soon as well. Like, you know, it just seems like it's, you know, it's almost like trauma porn, like people get off on it, or, you know.
I take films like that, or telly shows or whatever like that, to I think they're a bit of a cash grab, to be honest.
I think so too, because it's a relevancy thing, isn't it? They want to be relevant.
Yeah. So it's just basically cashing in on people's trauma and people's, you know, sadness and that kind of thing, which I don't completely agree with. No. But there are times when a film or a TV show is done so perfectly, it highlights something, and that is what it should be doing. Exactly. Like, obviously here in the UK, the thing that was happening with the post office.
Oh, yeah.
And the Horizon software.
Yeah. Fucking hell.
Like, when that documentary came out, and it elevated everything, because people had forgot about that from years ago. Yeah. That documentary came out, and then elevated everything.
And then they had a show, didn't they? They had a drama as well, ITV drama or something came out, and that was when it was kind of in the courts.
It properly kicked off, big, yeah.
And this is what Kathryn Bigelow's doing. Again, it's an untold, undocumented story that people need to know and be aware of. It does make changes. It does happen. Like, people, you know, reparations can be made, you know, things can change because we're telling these stories, because we're putting a spotlight on them. It's really, really important. And I think she does this excellently. But I love this when I watched it, and that was 1999. You know, I picked up on a lot of I don't think I particularly picked up on kind of maybe the more kind of racial aspects of it, because I think it was the kind of serial killer rape stuff which really stuck in my mind. But yeah, I still remember, you know, a large chunk of it, and it's stuck with me all these years. So she was clearly doing something right that I can remember. You know, there was a lot of scenes I was like, oh yeah, this happens now. It's been over 20 years for me to have seen this, and it's still in my mind. And I'm going to tell you, Georgina, I got some problems with my memory. So the fact that it stayed in my long-term memory for this long is huge. It's an achievement, incredible achievement.
Well, it's a testament to how the film affected you.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. On a deep emotional level, which is what she wanted. Those deep-seated emotions is what she wanted to pull out of us, and which I think she did. So yeah, you know.
Well, it's like the quote that you said from Bigelow earlier on as well, saying that she can portray these things through cinema that millions of people are going to see.
Exactly, 100%.
There you go.
100%. We do have a few listener comments before we finish. So I agree with you, Georgina. I do think people should watch this. I do think there's a lot here to like. Again, I don't think it's perfect, but what film is? But I think for the most part, I think it's a solid film. Great performances, some really interesting stuff, interesting sci-fi elements, interesting characters, and murder mystery. A lot of stuff going on, but I think it's a very solid as films go.
It's a solid watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 100%. So Mike of Genuine Chit Chat, the Genuine Chit Chat podcast, says, I've not seen this. So I've asked people about the work of Kathryn Bigelow and if they've seen this and if they enjoy it. But he said, I've not seen this, but I love Bigelow's movie, The Hurt Locker, plus Near Dark is a great vampire movie too. Correct. Her most recent movie, Detroit, is one of my absolute favourites, especially as it's based on real events. Embarrassingly, I've not seen Point Break. I recommend, again, Hurt Locker is great, Near Dark is great. I've not seen Detroit. I'm gonna save that one. Maybe me and Mike can do a podcast on that one at some point. That would be interesting. I Am Jack's Musings of the Back to the Filmography podcast says, Strange Days exists in one of my favourite subgenres, dystopian noir.
Yes.
I consider it a near masterpiece and massively influential upon subsequent cyber noir culture. Sci-fi thrillers such as The Matrix, Minority Report, the writing is superb, and the near future world of 1999 is lived in, and the acting is uniformly excellent. It falters slightly in the third act, I'd agree, as it focuses on the wrong character arc of the two white male, black female leads. That is a product of its time in production, no doubt. Maybe it would be different if it was made now. Despite it being nearly 30 years old, it remains relevant too. As for Bigelow, she is a Hall of Famer with her finger on the zeitgeist, and several of her films arguably responsible for changing genre filmmaking, Near Dark, Point Break, The Hurt Locker, for the better. He quotes the film, the issue isn't whether you're paranoid, the issue is whether you're paranoid enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's fantastic.
He's a big fan. Yeah, you've got one. 20th Century Geek, Scott of that podcast, says, massively underrated. This is a great tech noir with a impressive cast, and I would like to go beyond the finale and see the impact of events on the city, police, and black community when we get. But what we get is excellent. Bigelow is a director I wish did more. Even if I'm not a fan of all of her choices, the overall is good, if not great. And then Dan Keatis, I don't think I've seen it, Strange Days. I love the ambition of this will happen in about 5 years, near future sci-fi, e.g. Civil War. Obviously, I'm forever indebted to you introducing me to Near Dark, so he's talking to me directly. 4K Blu-ray was actually slated for release later last year, but it kind of vanished, which sucks, which I think is a vampire pun. I always have a soft spot for Point Break. It's crazy how we had Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves, Gary Busey, Laurie Petty, all under one roof. It's just a crazy 90s time capsule, which makes you want to fire your gun up in the air and go, ah! But yeah, thank you for all those comments, guys. Appreciate you watching it and enjoying it, or enjoying the work of Kathryn Bigelow. I think she's very influential on me and this podcast, as I've talked about in the previous Near Dark episode on Femme on Film, which I will link below if you want to listen to that. Me and Ria talk about her and her influence on me as a young person, and you might not get this podcast without Kathryn Bigelow. So yeah, she's a huge part of my identity, I think, and my media literacy, let's say. Georgina, is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish?
Yes, definitely go watch Strange Days. Absolutely.
Agree.
Just definitely go and watch it. Don't know, to be honest. I've had a right good time again.
Yeah. Of course you have. We always do. I think it's been a blast, and it's been great having you on, and thank you for coming in kind of last minute and doing this and picking up. I think we both needed the distraction from all the stuff going on our lives, so it's
Oh God, yes.
Without going whole hog into it, I think we definitely needed a little break, or talk about something positive.
Chat shit for a bit.
Absolutely.
This is it, man.
You know, I love doing this because it helps with my mental health and helps with a lot of my guests' mental health as well. So it's all positive, and we get to talk really positively about stuff. And you know, even when we talk negatively about some things, I still kind of enjoy it as well. But yeah,
we still have a giggle, don't we?
We have a good giggle. Yeah. So we'll have a look at maybe Hackers or Evolution maybe next time when we get a chance. Yeah, maybe I've got another idea. Maybe a comparison of Hackers and another film. Maybe I'll throw that. I'll throw that out to you. Maybe we'll experiment with that, because I think it's still in the same wheelhouse. I think it's out the same year as well. So, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Oh, we're never gonna get out in 95.
never again. It's only 90.
Fucking stuck in it.
It's a time capsule. It's a 90s time capsule. We only do films from 1995. That's it. So no films were even made after that. Who cares after that? But yeah, thank you again. This has been brilliant. I really liked exploring, just Kathryn Bigelow's, filmography and who she is, what she does, and all of her amazing accolades. I do wish she'd make more films, and I think most people do as well. Just make more films, because they're always, excellent. You might not enjoy all of them, like I don't, but there's a lot there to enjoy, and what she explores is always very interesting. And yeah, a fantastic filmmaker, whether male or female. She is an excellent filmmaker.
Yay!
Right, before I go, I just want to thank all my patrons who, again, did not choose this episode, but I hope they're okay with it. Again, it came very close to winning last time, but again, I've explained the reasons why and scheduling and stuff. And me and Georgina needed this. We needed this, so we did it.
We did.
But I think these guys appreciate anything I do anyway. So you've got more stuff coming your way, some more exclusive puny pods and Patreon exclusives. One I've done on a Cartoon Network comic recently, so that's going to come out quite soon if it hasn't hasn't come out already. I think it has come out already if my scheduling is correct. But I just want to thank Tony Farina, I Am Jack's Musings, Simon Cotton, Paul Mellon, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Ria Carrigan, and Sarah Coyne. Thank you for your continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. All right, and that'll be it for this Millennium themed podcast again. We'll come back and visit 1995 another time, Georgina. But thank you again, and as always, prepare for Prattle.